everything looks good except this giant bow in the middle, just from the heat. Hopefully I can get the thing bolted back together and straighten that out a little bit, but probably just got to live with it. Out of the way so she can get out. Well, we got the body mounted back on the chassis, got the wiring harness done, and truck box, trailer box. So we're just doglegging this out here for right now. It's got our wires for our sander. Everything's zip tied in wire loom. Got the hoses back on. Got some different epoxy that looks like it's working. The other stuff, the gasoline ate through. So now we are putting on boards. Had these sawed up at a buddy's house. So I got my bevel cut. Gotta go ahead and mark around all these and get all the boards set. course, I'm one board short because we had some of this bark going on. Tried to make it work, but I'll go pick up another 1x8, 8 feet long to be done. I tell you, these screws were a total pain in the ass. I've used them I've used them numerous times on different projects, and I like them. Take a number 3 Phillips head, and they have a self-tap, and then see, it's got 2 little wings on there. Those 2 little wings right there. What happens is, as it drills the hole, the wings bore the wood out of the way, and then when it hits the metal, those wings get ripped off in the metal, and then the threads start, and they usually go pretty good. Well, I tried it. I don't know if it's because this is some thicker metal, but it just wasn't working well, so I had to pre-drill everything. And I broke a few bits in the process, but of all those screws that I put in, 2 in every cross member, I only had one that gave me a real hard time. It was this one right here. And there's still a drill bit in the frame there, but what I ended up doing was putting it in the same hole, but at an angle, so it wouldn't hit where the drill bit broke off. So, and that one there, I ended up drilling the hole too big, so that one sticks up a little bit. But for the most part, it went all right. And I'm just loving the way it looks. That galvanized metal, brand new red taillights in that wood, and just, I love it. Looks awesome. Real happy with it. Across the back here, because I didn't want to have a bunch of screws sticking down here all ugly, I'm going to end up bolting the back so that there's just nuts across the back, you know, and that won't be too bad. But obviously it, you know, needs to be done, obviously, to try to hold these boards still. And I tried to put all the cups up so that the edges wouldn't lift. And yep, so one more board and we're done decking. The lights are done. I have to wire up my taillight harness. There's the sander harness. So I'm gonna buy just one of them generic taillight holders here, which is, you know, not a fan of doing that, but it's gonna be the easiest way of doing it. And then this right here, I'm gonna zip tie in place, so when I need it, I can pull it back over the frame and hook it up to the sander. So otherwise it'll just stay up under there. So big shout out to my buddy Paul for giving me the wood. I owe him some favors. So I'll make sure I get him what he needs. He needs some metal work done on his sawmill. So it's always good to trade, because otherwise this probably would have been $300, $400 worth of wood, and it would have been a couple weeks after order. This has been drying a little bit. It's still kind of wet, which is good. I want it to shrink a little bit, because as these boards expand, they'll push against each other. So if they'll shrink a little bit, then they have a little bit of wiggle room. So get one more board in there, and headache rack's going on. And I can't put the headache rack on until that board's in, because the headache rack covers this cross member. So I'll see if he's available tomorrow, and I'll run up and grab a board, and we'll move on to the next step. I got all the decking on. Went into my buddy's house. He gave me one last board this morning. I went and picked up a bunch of stuff for finishing up the wiring for the sander. We're gonna go ahead and stand this up and bolt it on, hopefully. I just stood on top of that thing and jumped on it and got it reasonably straight. Good enough for a work truck. If I ever get something galvanized again, I'll have to keep in mind how much that heat distorts the metal, because this was dunked into a vat of molten zinc that was, you know, 850 degrees, and I figured 10 gauge with 3 bends in it was going to be enough, and it wasn't. Even the top bar got a ever so slight, it might be an 1/8 of an inch bow in the middle. So Got to really keep that in mind. Luckily the body was all channel. It actually seemed like it had a little bit of a hump in it this way, because I got the bolts down on the gooseneck ball and the back end bolted down, and the front end was lifted up off the frame probably a ½ inch. So I had to press that down into place. So if you're gonna get it galvanized, heat distortion is a problem. So luckily, I think I'm gonna get away with what I did. So let's stand this thing up and get this thing together. Curl here. And this side looks pretty lined up. And this side is maybe 3/16 of an inch off. So I think if I bolt one side down and get the power pack out and press it, she might come into straight. But it's unfortunate. But once it's bolted on there, it's never coming off again. The only reason I had this as a 2-piece setup is so it was easier to transport and easier to dip in their tank. And then come to find out, they double dipped the body anyway, so I should have built it all as 1 piece. But my lights came in, and I got all my grommets and my wiring, so I'm gonna get this done today, hopefully. Well, there's probably something in the manual about not using extensions, but I don't think the guy that wrote the manual is watching this. And we're off a little still, so I'm gonna go ahead and bolt that side down, put that bar in there like I had it, and hopefully the other 4 bolts will hold it in place. And basically this shrank a little bit with the heat, and it pulled it just a 1/16 of an inch, 3/32. So okay, we'll get that bolted on, then we'll try to stretch it. Well, just like that, in only a couple seconds, I got the headboard on. I probably have 2 hours in trying to get these bolts in. I had to take this headboard off twice. I had to drill these holes out. I had to drill the zinc out of this plate. Had to re-tap the nuts. I had to re-chase the threads on all the bolts. I used my power pack, or whatever you want to call it, to push this apart. Ended up cracking this weld right here to make it happen. So I'll spray some zinc in there, and the headboard is finally on. Holy cow, what a pain in the neck. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill the zinc out of those holes, mount those tail lights, mount my backup lights, and mount my 2 strobe lights. I'll fish all the wires down under the cab here and get them hooked up to my harness. And then I gotta go inside the cab. I have to put 2 switches right here and here. One for strobe lights, one for the belt on the sander unit. And And then I have to get my solenoid, relay, and breaker all hooked up to my batteries to run my sander. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm getting pretty close to ice here, so I'm gonna get it done and show you the finished product. Holy cow, that took way longer than I thought it was going to. I probably have, I bet I got 6 hours in wiring up this headache rack and getting the wiring done. But here she is. It is done. project's finally done. I'll be able to throw the sander on pretty soon. Looks like maybe this upcoming week we're gonna have a couple storms. So luckily the weather held out long enough for me to get it done. I probably got about 3 weeks involved in this point. I way underestimated the time it was gonna take. But I'm glad that I took the time to do everything right the way I wanted it done. Get the wire harnesses nice and sealed up. I shouldn't have any issues with lighting. If I do, it's gonna be the cheap Chinese lights that I bought. But got a nice big open back window. I thought about putting some mesh across there, but just ugly, and the reality of it is I'm not gonna haul anything that high that's gonna be a danger of coming through the back. So now I have a 1.5 ton chassis for the cost of, I probably got a total of probably about $11,000 to $12,000 in this, which wouldn't even buy a rotted out 1 ton in this area. So I'm pretty happy with the final product. But I don't think I'll be doing another one anytime soon. If I do another one, I'm simply going to be putting this body on another chassis. And I don't know if I'll buy another ambulance or if I'll buy like a used U-Haul, because the ambulance had so many additional fuses and wiring and stuff that was left in it from the upfitter company. They just abandoned a bunch of the stuff. So there's a whole mess of wires down here in the rocker panel, under the hood. I was able to use some of that stuff, but it's just extra time going through all that. And this vehicle was probably used pretty hard because it was an ambulance, so I'm sure it was wide open throttle quite a bit. I'm sure it idled a lot, but it seems tight. I don't see any obvious leaks anywhere. So if I get 100,000 miles out of this chassis and, you know, 4 or 5 years of use out of it, I'll be pretty happy. And that galvanization on that body should last 15-20 years, no problem, before it starts to rust. So if I get 15 years out of that body for what I put into it for money, I mean, I have less money in it than if I were to buy a commercially available body and put it on there. So, you know, luckily I was able to source some steel from a local yard that was actually going out of business. He had a lot of stuff laying around. I picked it up pretty cheap. The steel right now is about $250 to $350 a pound, depending on the profile of it. So the wood I was able to source from a friend of mine. It's actually the guy that I'm bringing this Tamper over to. Bartering and doing favors goes a lot farther than cash in your hand, in my opinion. So a former boss of mine once told me the most money he ever made in his whole life was the times he never made any money. And what he means by that is, if you do a favor for somebody and they do a favor back, that favor back is worth, you know, let's take for example this wood on this deck right here, right? That's hardwood. It's all pretty clear stuff, wide boards, probably half dried because he keeps them in a shed, but you know, they were sawn not too long ago. To buy that at a local sawmill would probably be 500 bucks. I picked it up for $0. He's going to use my Tamper. If he had to rent a Tamper, it'd cost him probably 300 bucks. It's going to cost him $0. I'm going to make him a piece for his sawmill that he needs. That would have cost him a couple $100 at a fabrication shop. It's going to cost him nothing. And realistically, it's going to cost me nothing because I'm going to make it out of scrap metal anyway. So I find it much more beneficial to network, meet people, offer things. Don't be afraid to lose a little bit. So you might do something for them that's worth $1,000 and they might only hit you back with something that's worth $100. But it's not about the cost difference of the services, it's about the availability when you need it. Like I ran over to his house yesterday and picked up one board. This is the day after Thanksgiving. No place is open. So he was more than happy. And he's like, and while I was there, he's like, hey, you know, I could really use your Tamper. I said, I'll bring it right over tomorrow. He goes, ah, come pick it up. Okay. No, let me bring it to you. So if you can, if you find some people, you know, I got pretty fortunate. I got in with some of the older guys around here who they don't necessarily need the money anymore, but they're more than willing to help out, and I'm willing to help them out. So it's not much, but it was a delivery. That thing weighs like 800 pounds, that whacker. So it's a lot easier slinging that over the flatbed than it is putting it in the back of my pickup and worrying about hitting my wheel wells and hitting my bed sides. So now I got a work truck and I'm pretty happy about it. Well, you gotta be able to admit when you're wrong, and it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Something I did not consider at all is how big the gooseneck hitch is on one of these trailers. So I'm gonna have to cut some steel, unfortunately, and widen this out so that I can get a gooseneck hitch down inside here. Side to side is good, front to back is not good. So luckily you can weld galvanized steel, but unfortunately it compromises the integrity of the coating. But it's better I find this out now than when I actually need it. So I'm probably just gonna end up cutting this hole back to here or so on both sides, so that's got enough room to swing. Should have done my homework. At least this part of it we're definitely good on. Plenty of room for swing. I have zero idea if this is effective or necessary, but we've cut out the two cross members that were making the hole too small. We're going to open it up to 1 foot, and I'm going to reuse my cross members that I cut out. And from what I hear, welding galvanized steel is dangerous, so only because of the potential for a little bit of lead that's in the zinc bath that they dip it in. So I got this full face respirator with some chemical cartridges on it, and hopefully it reduces my risk of inhaling lead oxide. I got my doors open and I got the heater turned off, so I'm going to try to keep my head out of the fumes as much as I can. Well, you get the idea. Oh man, that hurt my soul welding through that fresh galvanization, but obviously had to be done. So it's not the prettiest in the world, but I think it'll definitely clear a gooseneck now. I'll end up making a hinged metal plate to go over that. Should be plenty of clearance now. And then get my carriage bolts across the back. Looks a lot better than screws hanging down. It's still not ideal, but I think screws would have been way uglier. In hindsight, I should have welded a piece of angle iron on the back side of this channel. That's alright. So now we're going to tackle the running board issue. inside the frame here. I got these fuel lines here that are a problem. So, looks like I can drill from the inside out, no problem, but I don't think I can hit the hole that I made. So, geez, it almost lines up with this guy. I wonder if I can make it line up with that one and then just drill that one out. I should have done this first, but it looks like I'm going to drill these two holes right here through my bracket from the inside, just because I think that's going to be the easiest way to line that up. And those two bolt holes ought to be enough. I'll drill those up to like 3/8. That should be more than enough. Got a mark to drill out on the bench. It's a little easier than under here. So I got those trimmed to length. I got both bolts in there and just finger tightened. I got this clamped out here and it's tight everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some welds on here and then take it off and finish welding it, reinstall it, drill bolt holes here, take it back off, paint it, put it back on and finish it. Much nicer. Alright, well, I'm not going to show you the other side. It's going to be the same thing, but different. I got them primered and painted last night. They've been drying overnight, so let's get these things mounted. Well, up to 2 o'clock in the morning again, getting stuff fixed. Are you a good dog? Herschel. Got them painted last night, got them bolted on this morning. Let's take a look. So that side of the frame had the holes in it too, but let me show you the issue that I ran into. This side of the frame, those two bolt holes were used to hold the exhaust hanger bracket, which had two pressed in 1/4 inch studs. Luckily there was enough metal there, I was able to remove the hanger and drill the holes out and do the same thing. This side here ended up being at a little bit of an angle forward to hit the holes. But in the end, man, these things are rugged. I thought about putting a gusset across here because I have some pieces of metal I could have used, but I thought it was a little bit overkill. So those are finally mounted, and that is the last thing that I had to do to this truck to get it ready for winter. So we are ready to throw the sander on this girl, and it looks like sometime in the next week or so we're gonna need it. So I'll try to capture some footage of that. So I put a bus bar in here for a positive and negative terminal. There's the solenoid and the circuit breaker and all the extra wiring for the sander, which comes over here to the control module that I'm actually going to move right up against this seat when my dad gets here because I can't be under the cab to get the bolt and above it. And then this panel here, I'm going to bend along these 3 lines so that it's up here, and I have strobe lights, and that's the solenoid for the conveyor chain, and then I drilled an extra hole for the switches in case I ever have to add another feature. That was a crazy amount of work to get this thing done, but I have less money in this bed than if I were to buy one. I obviously have a lot of time into it, and I have less money into this truck than anything on the market that's currently available in the same price range. There's nothing of this quality in this price range. So let's take this down to my buddy's house and see if the gooseneck will fit now. I'm really hoping it does because I'm not doing that again. I can almost guarantee you're not going to see another one of these going down the road. Looks like that modification was plenty adequate for space around the gooseneck. I had to drop the coupler 1 hole. See if my lights are working. I don't have my brake controller yet. This is just a hookup to see if it would work. Yeah, we got turn signals, we got running lights. Nice. well, that's it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Takes a lot of effort to make sure I record all the certain parts I think you might like. So if you do enjoy the video, check out the channel. I have a few other videos up there for you. I don't have a whole lot of time for editing, so videos tend to lag behind. And you know, with 2 kids and this plowing contract I have, it's pretty hard to find time to edit these videos. It takes an immense amount of time in editing, so I'm trying to get better. So let me know what you like, drop down in the comments, post ideas. Maybe I'm cool with criticism. If you want to say, hey, you know, maybe if you would have done this, it would have been better, I'm cool with that. And subscribe to the channel, like it, share it to Facebook, and that helps me know that I'm doing what you guys want to see. And I want to make more videos, and I want to get out there, and hopefully you guys are learning something, or maybe you're learning what not to do, which is fine too. So check out the channel, subscribe, like, tell your friends. I know it sounds corny, but it helps me out. Okay, thanks. See you on the next one.